We're on. All right. Is everybody out there? Okay. Hi, folks. And hi, folks watching the live stream. My name is Leah Hoyer, and we are going to be here today talking about what is your hit factor. This, just as you're kind of getting settled into the room here or at home, getting started, everybody make sure that you've got something to write with and on. It can be your laptop, or it could be pencil, notepad, what have you. Because this is going to be a pretty interactive experience. There's going to be times when I'll pose questions and you guys will have some time to be thinking about what that means for your individual project, because you know what? Your hit factor is absolutely different than the person sitting next to you. So that is one of the main things that we're focusing on. And again, for folks in the room, I just want to say, I know that these can sometimes be distracting. This side of the room has a lot fewer people sitting on it. So if you're over in this space where you're not able to see super well and want to migrate there, by all means, now is a great time to do it. So we're just getting settled in. Some other things to talk about for the purposes of this project. I don't know about you, but I'm the sort of person who always has like 12 ideas in my head and I'm trying to think about them all. For the purposes of this, I would be thinking about what one you would sort of prioritize most. Like, what is that creative content project that you are most excited about, that you're furthest down the road on? Maybe you're already producing your podcast. You already have a blog about this topic. You already are doing that. And you'd love to refine it a bit and be thinking about how to better connect with people. So just pick that one, keep that in mind, and we'll use that for all the exercises that we're talking about. Also, I would just ask that you kind of keep an open mind, because people come in a lot of times with an idea and with something that's sort of formed in their head about what it is that they want to put out to the world. But the ways in which you want to talk about it, the things that make it most special, the thing that might have your hit factor in it, may be a little bit different for other people once you start digging a little deeper. So be willing to sort of question some of the assumptions that you might have about your content today. And then certainly there are going to be moments where I may be asking people to maybe share some of their ideas. I won't call on anybody who doesn't raise their hand. And for folks at home, there is indeed a chat window. So if there are things that along the way you've got questions, you certainly can add stuff in there. We have someone monitoring that so that they are able to respond. And they will voice your question. I'll be able to respond at certain times throughout. And we'll have time for questions at the end. Also, to set expectations, today's going to be about an hour. So it's not, we haven't locked you in this room for 4 hours. This isn't a huge commitment of your time, but we're going to get to a lot of things, and there will be time for a question and answer at the end. If it runs to an hour 20 because there are lots of questions, so be it. That's great. But it's going to be about an hour-long presentation and question answer session. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. First, hi, I'm Leah. My name, oh, thanks. Hi, friend. And my background, well, I used to be a lawyer. That didn't work out so well. I didn't like doing that. And I decided at some point that I wanted to make cartoons. And so I went and got my MFA in animation and wound up working at Disney for about a decade. And my job there was to hear pitches from people and find the next show. So the very first show I worked on there was one called Recess, which, and now I know how old you are. And then I worked there through like Phineas and Ferb era, worked at Kim Possible and some other things all along the way, and some really cool things. Yeah, I would love to be Kim Possible. I'm so much more of a Ron Stoppable. It's not even funny. So, and for those of you that didn't make any sense, that's okay. But that was a place where I really first started to see what was the traditional Hollywood model of people pitching their ideas, hoping that Disney would give them money and invest in them to be able to, make their show. And over time, at a lot of these other companies that I've worked at, my role has very frequently been to hear people's ideas, to hear pitches, to hear the kind of content ideas that other folks have, and really along the way helping to work with those people to define and refine and be able to make those things hit an audience. Sometimes it's been things like traditional TV. Other times I've worked at video game companies where we wanted to find the right streamer who could come on and be streaming our content, talking about it, and being a good ambassador for the types of products that we've been making. And so pitching and content actually spans a really broad spectrum of things. And in fact, if you are a content creator, you're not only pitching to buyers and sponsors and people who might give you money, but you're also on a daily basis pitching to fans. And so this whole thing is about really figuring out what is most important to be talking about. What are the things that are going to set you apart from a lot of the other things that are out there? I want to talk a little bit about the fact that this is actually the very first official event for Content Marketplace. Content Marketplace is an ongoing event that's going to take place here in Miami. The actual dates of the marketplace themselves is October 3rd and 4th. But it is an event that we are planning to span 3-4 months leading up to that, helping to get people ready to go to Content Marketplace. Because what the marketplace is that there will be classes and panels and seminars and things to learn. There are also going to be a lot of sponsors and buyers and people who are there interested in meeting people who have content, who have stories to tell in various forms, finding new voices. And so part of why we're doing a masterclass series to lead up to that is so that people feel really prepared for the time that they get to go and they actually can sit down across the table with someone who works at Viacom and know what to say. Feel comfortable, feel that they understand how that's all going to go down. But at the marketplace itself, there's, going to be a 2-day event of, like I said, classes, a chance for y'all to network with one another. And that's something that I think is really important as well, is that people who are content creators, the more you talk to other content creators, even if they're doing something fairly different from you, there's such a nice creative energy that comes out of that. It's always great when you have an idea to share your idea with someone else, get their feedback, because it may sound like one thing in your head. Once you start to talk about and say these things to other people, they may have something that's like, oh, you know what, that's cool, and that really made me think of this. And you may say, no, that's not where I'm going. That's okay. Or you might say, hey, that's a really interesting idea. We might go there. You might even find some really cool creative partnerships that happen. And you also might find people who become your productivity buddy. And I don't know about you, but again, because I oftentimes have 12 projects going on in my head, focusing on one and making sure that I'm hitting deadlines and making sure that I'm putting content out on a regular basis is so important to doing this and doing this well, that having some accountability partners, even if they're working on their own projects, is a really great idea. So even just getting to know and expand your network of other content creators is such an amazing thing for you to be focusing on. All right. So yeah, really though, the thing about Content Marketplace is the organizers, the focus of it is, hey, a lot of us are content creators. Most of us want to be content entrepreneurs. What does that mean? We actually make a business out of this. We make a living. We get people to pay us for this so that we're not just doing this as a passion project in our garage. That's fine and all. After a while, you run out of the ability to keep feeding your passion project, right? So how do you start thinking about your content as a business owner? As a person who's thinking about a brand, who's thinking about products that are going to be marketed to people. And really that is what Content Marketplace is all about. So this, like I said, is one of the first steps we're taking to kind of get you prepared to do that. And here are the rest of the master classes, just so you know: July, August, September. Today's one is actually free. The rest of them are part of the Content Marketplace. Like, you pay for your ticket for Content Marketplace. All of those open up to you. So the understanding your audience is something we're actually going to touch on a little bit today about how important that is, but that's a really good one to also be thinking about, because your audience is probably very different, again, than the audience of the person sitting next to you. And that's a great thing. Starting to learn how to craft that pitch, and then thinking about who can you pitch to, or what are the many outlets that are out there, because it's gone so far beyond traditional at this point that there are so many things for you to think about. And so these will ideally get people set up to come to Content Marketplace feeling really, really empowered to have those really good conversations with people. All right. So let's then go ahead and dive into what is your hit factor. Okay. First off, the big thing, the exciting thing about the fact that now content is in everybody's hands. Like, you can pick up your phone, you can put it on yourself, have a 20-second video and post that to your Instagram every day and start to get followers around a certain theme. It is in everybody's hands, and everybody has the ability to put their own content out into the world on some pretty well-known platforms with lots and lots of people potentially as your audience, right? The downside of that is that everyone has that ability and lots of people are doing it, right? So the big thing is you need to figure out what about your content is going to stand out from this crowd of people that are out there doing something that's really similar potentially to the basic ideas of what you're doing. So, hey, let's talk for a moment about what actually makes great content. And as I put some of the things that I love up here that I go, oh yeah, these are some interesting concepts. But you guys can all think also of like stuff that you love. Things that you love, whether it be a comic book, a movie, there's a podcast that you love, all that sort of thing. Talk to me right now about what are some of the things that make those things that you love great. What are elements? Yeah. Ah, okay. Sort of the shareability of it. That's awesome. Yeah, like especially anything social. Yeah.
Just makes it so that I want to get like the way that it inspires me.
Ah, okay. And what about the actual production or the actual material inspires you? Like, what are some of the aspects that allow, like, why is Game of Thrones good? Yeah. Okay, awesome characters, certainly. And some are like, yeah, maybe not so much at the end. I don't know. Yeah, I still love a lot of the characters. And maybe we can have that debate later, shall we? Okay. What are some of the other things? Yes.
Something that I learned that is new for me.
Great, absolutely. New teachable content, that thing that like you came away feeling more enriched than when you went in. I certainly feel that way sometimes when I watch Chopped and other cooking shows for me, because I come out and I'm like, oh, you know what? I shouldn't do that thing that person did that. Oh, that didn't go so well. You know, truffle oil, stay away from truffle oil. Anyway, yes. What was that?
A good story?
Absolutely. A really good story at the core of it. Okay. Anything else that you sit there and you go, ah.
Something that could benefit most people.
Ah, okay, yes. And what do you mean when you say something that can benefit most people? What do you mean by benefit? Like, what's the kind of benefit that you have?
Well, my one concept is
Mhm.
focused on health.
Ah, yes. So if you have something that gives people that information, gives people access to things, there certainly can be a big social benefit and a personal and individual benefit for a lot of people. Yep. All right. I will say that most things that make something great and that really make it stand out fall into one of basically three categories that we talk a lot about in sort of the traditional entertainment industry. And those would be your concept, talent, and that has a lot of different things that comes along with it, and the execution. Okay. All of those three things come together to make something that feels really good and really polished. But in general, I think you tend to look most at a movie or a TV show or a book or a blog or anything, a podcast along those lines. And one of these stands out a little bit more than the others. It may be the talent that's, you know, saying the words or that's acting on screen or that has written the script. It may be that the execution in particular, because, oh yeah, we've talked about the fact that some of this stuff is shareable, the platform that it's on, the ways in which you can interact with it or share it is really special. Or it may just have one of those concepts that feels so unique and exciting that you just go, oh yeah, that's for me. I really need to get in on that. And we're going to talk a lot about these three and how they relate to the stuff that you guys are working on right now. All right, so yes, what makes your content special? Certainly it's not just an entertainment term, but we talk a lot about finding the unicorns. What are the things that feel like they really are special out there? This thing is one of a kind. This thing is something that is rare and we want to bring it in. What is rare, what is special and exciting about your individual project is what we're going to be talking about today. You're going to be scribbling down a lot of notes, and hopefully we're going to get you closer to what that is. All right, first let's talk with the concept idea. Okay, hey, here are some fun stats, and by fun I mean there are like 750,000 podcasts that exist right now. Okay, and if you look at them, like 40,000 of them focus on pop culture. Again, if you're a person who wants to make a movie review podcast, awesome. It's going to need to be defined in some way that's more special than that, because there are 40,000 other people who are doing something similar, right? Or you look at, hey, just within the traditional Hollywood ecosystem, there are over 4,000 comedies pitched every year to TV execs, okay? Only about 50 of them get greenlit every year. Okay, those odds are tight. So, hey, the nice thing is you don't have to be in the traditional Hollywood ecosystem. That's great. But the odds are still, if you want to do something that is going to get a lot of people and actually some money coming in for you making this content, your odds are stacked against you. So how do you make it stand out? How do you make one of those things special? And, looking at something, there are about, and this stat blew me away, there are about 5 million mom blogs across the world right now. Yeah. If you are a blogger and I think they took a fairly liberal stance with this. It may not be that every single blog entry that these women are putting out are specifically about their children and about raising them. Okay. But these people lean into the fact that they have a family, that this is part of their life, and having it all, the balance and all of that. 5 million. Okay, so if you're there going, I'm going to be the 5 million and first, okay, what are you going to do to stand aside or stand apart, right? So I want everybody right now to at least have that starting point. You have the thing that you can write down on. What is your log line? Like, what is the thing that just defines the product that you are making? It's okay if it's not perfect, but if you've got an idea, you should know this, okay? And if you haven't really spent a lot of time figuring it out, right now I'm going to give you all 2 minutes to be able to sit down and write it down. Make sure, write down your current log line, and it can be no more than 2 sentences. Ideally, it will be 1. This is a blog about, this is a podcast about, this is a web series about what? Go ahead, take your time. You at home, do the same. Absolutely, this is a documentary about, by all means. I love seeing everyone writing. Keep going. The moment that I start to see most of you put your pencils down, stare back up, then we'll get started again. But this is great. All right. I get the sense that most people who are doing this, at this point, you've moved on to how can I refine this? How can I wordsmith it? You know the basics. They're all down on the paper right now. So let's now move on to the next step, which is let's do some of that analysis of the crowd that's out there. Okay, how is your mom blog different than other people's mom blog, right? So if you're looking at this, everyone, I want you to now think about 3 separate questions. Who out there, and hopefully you're aware enough of the ecosystem, who out there is doing things that you would consider are similar? Not the same, but similar. You know, it's the other me taking pictures of my dogs while mountain biking Instagram, okay? The other people who are interested in lacrosse as much as I am and have written a blog about it. Okay, so all of those things that may come up, who are some of who you might consider even your competition? Who are people who are doing something similar? With that, how are you different than them? Whether you are right now or whether you could be, that's up to you. Write that, like, how do you think your content is different from those other people who are doing something similar? And along with that then, for your target audience, and again, the target audience is something we'll get into in the next class a lot more, but understanding that you're not making content for everybody. That's the biggest rule. You're making content for people who are really interested in this thing that you're doing. And there's a certain target audience for it. For your target audience, how is or how can your content be better than those other ones that are kind of similar to you? How can it fit the needs of that target audience more than what is currently out there from other providers? I'll give you guys like another 30, 40 seconds to like jot some stuff down because I think this is important. All right. From that, I'm going to put that we've sort of done some work on your concept and how your concept relates to the market that's out there, other people in that space. I want to now move on to talent because again, we're trying to find your unicorn. What is your hit factor? What is your something special? Talent is a really interesting thing, and it obviously has several definitions, and all of them apply in this scenario. So if I were to look at talent that's out there making content right now, some of it, and I think if you look at this as kind of a, not even quite a spectrum, but you could look at a Sophia or someone who's out there who is the talent that is in front of the camera, the talent who is in front of the mic, whose voice you hear on the podcast. It is the person who's showing up in photos, okay? There is a person who is a lot of times just very front and center. Or you could go to the other side, which is like a Steven Spielberg, who is the talent behind it, the brains behind the idea, the person maybe writing the script or directing the cameras and doing all of that. Or you could look at a Beyonce who's just like an all-in-one, she does it all, kind of like, I swear this woman's like unhuman. Like the fact that she's smart enough to know she still has a ginormous team of people around helping her make those decisions, but she's absolutely tremendously creatively involved with her projects, with the songs she chooses, with her documentary, with all those kind of things, the way that her choreography works at her concerts. You know that she's playing both sides of that. And a lot of times for a content entrepreneur, you're more like a Beyonce than other things. Maybe not. Maybe you're entirely a Spielberg. Maybe you're entirely a Sophia. Okay? It's possible. But a lot of times in the content entrepreneur sense, we're here, right? Okay. So with that, thinking about the creative team. How many of you in your current projects right now, how many of you have a creative team that is a team of one? It is me. I am doing the writing. I am doing the stuff in front of the camera. I'm doing the editing. I'm doing the marketing. I'm doing all the things. Okay. I'm assuming that the rest of you are maybe partnered up with people. How many people are working on a project that maybe has more than 3 people on it, that has 4 or 5 or more people who are working on something? Cool. Okay. for this, just sort of a sense of getting a sense of who is on your team. You probably don't need to write down all of their names because you know them. Really thinking about why they're a good fit for this concept. Why are you the right person for this concept? Why is your partner the right person to be working on this concept? What about that connection actually works? You know, if you're making videos for people on how to be a better surfer and you've never surfed, I will say that's an odd choice, right? So most people are a little closer to it than that. But what about the connection between the concept and the people making it really clicks? And I would say, by all means, feel free to write these down, but at least be thinking about that. And then think about, what are all the people on your team, what are their superpowers? Sort of in relation to that, that's like, how do they work together? Like, if you're great at ideas and the other person's great at execution and timeliness, okay, that works nicely together. You want a team that can make that happen, right? So if everybody is great at ideas and nobody gets something across the finish line, maybe your team is a little lacking, right? And you want to think about, hey, my superpower is ideas. I'm not as great at timely content creation. Okay, maybe I need to find a partner that would pair into that space. Okay, and the special qualities goes along to some extent with the fit for the concept, but what about them is really special? This person on camera has a tremendous amount of personality and they just pull people in. People don't even like surfing, but they're watching it because this is just, there's a magnetic presence on camera. Okay, that's important. If you're gonna have something there, like, that's a great quality for someone to have, right? But if that's not there, what are you doing to balance it out? Okay, along with this, probably the biggest thing is, how do the voices of your content connect with your viewers, your audience? Anybody know what this is from? Everybody sort of like pulled this off the internet, but okay, there's Matt Mercer and a bunch of other nerdy people doing what started off as like a video series, a video podcast almost, called Critical Role. Critical Role is one of my favorite things to look at just the potential for content entrepreneurship. Matt Mercer's this guy over there. He is a voice actor. I've actually worked with him on animated shows and on video games before. He's really great as a voice actor. Not necessarily, though, a person who people know by name or knew by face, because he's always been behind the mic. He, however, loves Dungeons and Dragons. Like, loves it. And he had been playing with a bunch of his other voice actor and other friends for a very long time. And, they said, you know what if we actually just started taping this and kind of putting it on? Because we have so much fun together. We joke about it. Our campaigns get all goofy. We have a great time with this. Critical Role now has over 15 million regular viewers of their weekly show. And they just did a Kickstarter that was the #1 Kickstarter for an entertainment property that they, in the first day, I believe, I could be wrong, it might be the first weekend, surpassed their base goal to make an animated episode of Critical Role. They surpassed it and made so much money that they are now able to make an entire season, and will be able to put it out to, they can sell it to a Netflix or to somebody else if they want to, or they have their own means and their own audience to potentially just put it out on their own platform, right? This is a great example of, you know what? Does everyone love Dungeons and Dragons? No. But what he did is he took some really charismatic people around a concept that meant something to him and pulled in a bunch of other people who it also meant something to them. And they connected with the millions of people out there who also love tabletop role-playing games. Okay? And they turned it into something that is huge. He was making a very good living as a voice actor. I guarantee this will be a bigger part of his career than his individual things that he was booking as a voice actor. And in the case for a lot of these people as well. Okay, I think it's a really good example to look at, though, because they know their audience. Their audience are people like them, and their audience are people who also love Dungeons and Dragons. Their audience are people who may be fans of some of the animated shows and the video games that they were playing, and you pull them in and we're like, oh, because it's not just about the game when you get into the podcast, right? Or when you get into the video cast, it's about the relationships between all these people. And I don't know how much you know about Dungeons and Dragons, but it really is a whole gaming platform to tell stories. And the stories get to be fun and goofy. All these people take on the role of a character. Sometimes they're putting on accents. They're having a lot of fun. It is great entertainment, even if you actually have never picked up a 20-sided die. Okay, so it's the really great example of this is content that I have a special connection with. I'm going to pick this kind of concept, and I'm going to make sure that the talent around it understands that that concept is cool and that concept is amazing. Is it going to appeal to all the people on the planet? No. Does it have to? No. And I will say one of the biggest things, if you try to make it appeal to everybody, you're going to fail. All right. So then let's also talk about execution for a moment. I want you to be thinking about, again, get that idea back in your head of what it was that you wanted to specifically talk about, or what you wanted to come here to think about where the hit factor was. What about the execution may stand out? This is a harder one because a lot of times execution may or may not stand out, but here's some things I want you to think about. The technology you're using. It is pretty easy for some of these platforms to stand out in a bad way. If you are using a camera that is 10 years old and has horrible resolution, or the microphone has bad sound quality, and you're always recording next to a place where people are mowing their lawns and the dogs are barking, and it's constantly picking that up, that is the place where your execution is going to dip. However, if you take some time to figure out, okay, where should I actually be shooting or recording? What materials can I do? What materials can I afford? But what materials are the best that I can afford to be able to work with? Is there a new technological solution out there? Is there a new way to upload this stuff so that it gets out there faster? Like, the technology can absolutely get in the way. At Content, the Marketplace, we're actually going to have a whole panel of people there really talking about new content solutions, and there's going to be some other people there too. That's one of those things though, new technology solutions. That is one of those areas that people really do need to make sure they invest enough in. Do you need to go crazy and have like the setup down at Magic here to be able to make this work? No. Okay, they've got a ginormous room with green screens, and they've got VR headsets, and they've got all these things that is probably way more than you need. But you do need a minimum of quality in your technology, right? Consistency is one that everyone has the ability to be excellent at, and very few people are. You knowing that you're going to put out something and telling your audience, every Tuesday and Saturday, something new is going to come out. Might be a new blog post, might be new pictures, might be a new 1-minute portion of the episode of this ongoing saga that you're telling in animation. Like, there's so many different types of content, but consistency and getting it out on a regular basis and meeting the expectations of your fans and future fans is incredibly important. This is a place where, again, a commitment to that execution can absolutely help you stand out. That goes a little bit hand in hand with dedication. We all get to a place where we're like super excited about something, and it's like, oh, this is so early on, and I've got this great new idea, and I'm going to spend all this time. And you know that week you spent 25 hours just working on this thing, and you were doing all this stuff. Maybe you spent 60 hours. Is 60 hours sustainable for the rest of your life on something that's not making you any money yet? No, right? So thinking, though, about how much you can dedicate so that you can commit to the consistency. You can commit to that ability. And this is the other place that a lot of times people really fall down on. If you can be one of those people who is just good and consistent and really dedicated to making sure that the quality bars hit every time. Oh yeah, there were those dogs barking during that entire last minute of the podcast. You know what? Okay, could you record it again? That's the dedication. And places like coordination, particularly between your team. Are you guys bringing all of your pieces to bear? Are the things that you're focusing on making sense with the things that the other people are focusing on? And are those coming together to make something really amazing? Your platform has a lot to do with it. Did you choose to initially put this out on something that's maybe sort of questionable, doesn't hit as many people, or that constantly has banner ads that are out there and like getting sort of distracting? You really want to think about where you're putting your content, because that's an essential part of your execution. And are you bringing some innovations to bear in the way that it's put out there? There's a really growing segment of things, and I love this, especially coming from more of the video games industry, of interactive content that's being put out. Things where people along the way can make some choices about what they're seeing and be able to impact and influence and feel like they're even more part of it. That's a really intriguing space where a person all of a sudden starts to feel their content can feel really special if they're moving into a more innovative area. So you may have a mom blog, but how are you going to look at that in a way that potentially conveys the information to people in a different way? You can think about that sort of in line with your technology. Like, can you be innovative with the format? Can you be innovative with your technology? Okay. Now, I want everyone to think about, with all those things that we just talked about, around your concept, around your talent, around your execution, for you and your project. What about those, like instinctively, in your gut, feels like it is the most special? Write it down. Like, absolutely, right now, what among those things feels like it is something that sets you apart? If you're going, I don't know that I've gotten that yet, that's okay. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But, right? Yeah, question.
Did you mean what's the most special about platform dedication, all those things, or everything?
About your concept, your talent, and your execution. So from the last whole set of maybe 10 slides that we were talking about, what feels the most special? Like, where do you feel like you've got something that truly sets you apart from other people? In part because I think one of the reasons I wanted to go through that exercise is, even when I said, hey, what makes great content? We tended to focus on the things that you see. Okay, those are some of those places there. Some of the people tend to be in a certain space. What makes your thing special might be something different than that. And that's why we wanted to go through, think about your content, think about your talent, and think about your execution. What really stands out for your product? Okay. Now, on top of that, is that thing, does it to you right now feel special enough? When you start to think back along, oh yeah, there are other people doing similar things to me. Right now, do you have something that you feel sets you apart enough that feels like it can really stand out? If not, you want to keep refining, keep hitting on that idea. There may be one of two things that could be going on right now. One, you're not really tapping into the thing that is already very special about your project. So you want to kind of go and do some more thought about that. Like, what is that thing that is feeling more special? Or the other might be, I've taken so many cues from what other people are doing. I feel like I've spent the last couple months really trying to kind of emulate someone else. So now what I've done is made a pretty good clone of somebody else's thing. But now what I need to focus on is adding those things back into this that feel really special and really focused to me and to an audience. That is not something we are going to solve in this room, but that is absolutely the edict that I leave you with to go out into the world and for the next week, really be thinking about this idea. Okay, is your specialness enough to set you apart when you're talking and people are like, well, how is that different than, yeah, you make an unboxing shoes video. How is that different from the 2,700 other people who unbox shoes. Okay? It's amazing to me that people make livings out of unboxing shoes, but they do, and lots of them do. You too could probably do it as long as you find your hit factor, right? So how in the world is where is that special? Okay, that is the question that I hope bounces around in your brain for the next week until you kind of go, oh, you know what? I feel like it's over here. Great. When you get that feeling, explore that more. Dive into that more. Say, oh, I think, it might actually be a little bit more about the fact that I do it from Miami. And you know what we do in Miami? What does that mean? Oh, how do we do it differently here than folks who might unbox shoes in Michigan? Okay, well, I could do it on the beach. I'm unboxing shoes on the beach. That's special. Okay, you can get to the point where you're figuring out, though, what about your content has the ability to really stand out. It might take an alteration. But here's something else that I will say. You are unique, okay? Absolutely, you, your background, your experiences, and the stories that you tell are unique. I would really encourage everyone here to tap into the fact that you have something that you will bring to a podcast or to a blog or to a web series or to a documentary that no one else has if you let yourself bleed into the content. Okay? How many people here actually on the Content Marketplace website, there was a form that like you could fill out, and this thing was sent to some people. It was called The #1 Secret to a Great Show Pitch. Is anybody here actually? Okay. We're going to make sure that everybody, if you signed up for this and you're here or you're online, at the end of this, you'll get this sent to you because it also is a little bit more detailed worksheet that really dives into you and your voice, and what about you in particular is something that you can bring to this and feel special. Like, how do you make sure that your own personality gets into here? I would really, really encourage folks to do this because, again, you're unboxing shoes, somebody else is unboxing shoes. The things that you like about shoes, why do you like shoes? You have certain stories about shoes that your mom bought you when you were 7 and everyone else had Nikes, but no, she got you one that looked like a check mark because she thought it was good enough and they didn't have enough money to get you the Nikes. That may or may not be a personal story. Okay, this is one of those things, though, that I can tell that story in a way that other people can't. Right? Allow yourself to be able to say, look, I love shoes because I actually only had one pair of shoes every year for school, and then I got one to go to church in. Okay, so I had 2 pairs of shoes, but I'm not wearing my church shoes to school. So I had 2, and now I love shoes because I can go out and get myself some shoes. And I have more than 2 pairs of shoes, and I'm going to bring that kind of story to bear on why I love shoes. Why I love fancy shoes, why I love shoes that have ribbons, why I love shoes that, sparkle, why I love going and finding used clothing store shoes that are vintage, why I love doing other. So bringing that kind of sense of the unique angle and your personal bent on why you are connecting to this. You all chose to pick this concept that you are working on for a reason. If the reason is, I think everyone in the world is going to love this concept, it's going to reach a lot of people, it's the kind of thing that major companies like Disney or Viacom or other people will want to buy, that's probably not the best reason. I would much rather you find a concept that means something to you, that you feel passionate about. Because here's the amazing thing about this kind of streaming content, this kind of downloadable content, almost everyone has the internet. And that means that out of the 7 billion or more people that are on the planet, you can probably find 50,000 other people who are just as passionate about this quirky thing that you love. And that's enough to have a really good, robust audience. You would rather get those really passionate, connected people And that's what content entrepreneurship and really dives into, okay? It is not about maybe down the road you can be Critical Role and then you can get a bunch of people to make a whole animated series based on something that might go on a network. But even there, they're not pitching to a network. They went out to Kickstarter, okay? They went out to the masses. They went out to their fans. They went out to the people who they had cultivated this really nice core group, okay, to be able to say, I know that what is going to be a hit with that group of 8,000, 80,000, 800,000, 8 million people, whatever it is, it's going to connect with them because it connects with me and I connect with them. All right? So make sure that you're really tapping into this. And I really encourage, we're going to email this out to everybody. We've got all of your registration stuff, so we'll make sure that you get this. I would go through it. It'll honestly take you 30 minutes to like kind of think about the questions, work through it as a worksheet. Use that to think about, yeah, I am special. I'm saying this. I don't even know a lot of you, but I love you. You're special, okay? We've got this. You all have something really awesome to bring. Tap into it. All right. So as we're wrapping up here, there are things that I want you to keep in mind, and then there'll be some more questions that we can get into some of maybe the specifics of some of the things about your projects, anything that you want to ask that's maybe you didn't understand as much or you'd love to get more information on. I will be here for a while. We can ask questions. But things to keep in mind are definitely your project needs to be unique. This is the big recap. I think we all got this, right? You got to keep working on the concept until it feels like it's got there. All right. Next, once the project, you figure out what that unique thing is, as you're moving forward then, always let that be your guiding light. Okay? What is really special about your project? You make all the other decisions in a way that is going to nurture that thing that is special. It's both creative things to help you build out the rest of your content, but also who are you going to market to? You know, if you actually get the chance to sit down with a buyer or a sponsor, who are the right people to sit down with? They're going to be people that tap into and care about what is special about your project, right? The colors you choose, the format, the platform you put it on. Okay, your audience will very much be determined by what is special and unique about your project. So make sure you're picking a platform that your audience is going to. Don't pick a slightly cheaper platform that none of them are on. Okay, so there's really some key questions there that is so important once you find it. All the other things, not every other decision you make is going to go specifically at that, but they all have to nurture it. Do no harm. Okay, lean into that side of it. All right, so one other thing we touched on a bit. If you are doing this solo, consider partnering up. Because I find I have a lot of faith in my ideas, okay? I feel like I'm a pretty good creative. There has been no time in my life where if I sat down and shared my ideas with another pretty good creative, they didn't get better on some way. And maybe the partnership isn't, oh, this person's going to come in and help me make my blog, help me make my podcast, or help me make my film. But maybe they are that sort of schedule partner. They're the accountability buddy that does it. Like, partnership can come in a whole variety of formats. They may just be people that you trust to give feedback at really critical times. Or they might be someone who, because I guarantee you, if you're starting to make a podcast and you want this thing to go out once or twice a week, that's a lot of work. Maybe you're great at coming up with the concept and being on mic talent, but are you great at the editing and polishing it all up and getting it out the door? If not, if that's the part that makes you kind of like loathe it and you're going to start to miss deadlines, find the right partner who believes in that project, who can take on the editing. Okay, it's critical because, again, if you let that thing fall down in your execution, if you let the regularity, the consistency, the expectations that you're setting with your growing audience base fall by the wayside here and there, that is the surest way to have people tune out. So balance your team in a way that makes sense. And finally, know that you have a unique voice, okay? It may not be a voice that you want to have behind the microphone on your podcast. You might want somebody else to do that. What I mean by this is you've got stories to tell. You've got a background and perspective that other people don't have. Do not be afraid to let that be part of your content. And I will say, if it's going to be truly successful, it pretty much has to be part of your content. You have to let yourself, your personality, your interests, your loves, your affections, your hates, all those things come into the content of what it is that you're putting out there. Because that will make it stand aside. It also makes it super authentic. Okay, and people who are viewing, listening to, reading your content can absolutely tell if something is authentic, and it will be authentic if you let your voice go into it, right? Okay. One other cool thing is that chatting with the content folks, there is going to be, because you are here, if you want to register for Content Marketplace in October, you can do so at, here's the website, cont-ent.org. You can go on and register, but between now and Monday, there's actually a discount code for 40% off of all of them, and it will go away. They've never given a discount this big. They won't do it again. It's just for you guys showing up to be part of this, because we were really excited for the inaugural masterclass, and it's Hit Factor 40. We'll make sure that this goes out in the email along with the document that I was telling you about, the worksheet about the sort of getting to the essential part of you as a person who's pitching. We'll make sure that those get sent out in a thank you email, but you can register for this. It's live now, I believe. Yes, live now, and going through the end of day Monday period. So yes.
I'm just curious exactly what does registering mean? What is the...
So the October 3rd and 4th marketplace, Content Marketplace, is a conference that tickets are sold for. So it is not free, unlike this. The other master classes are not free, unlike this. So there are different tiers. The basic is go to Content Marketplace, absorb, hear all the classes, all of those things. The second level also adds, if you are a current content creator who has a blog, who has documentaries, who has a podcast, all those other sorts of formats, there's an awards process there. So you can both apply to have yours judged in awards and be part of that. But it's also the case that all the buyers get a directory of all the people who are attending and have submitted existing projects. And those projects have to be live. They're not pitches for projects. They are things that are published somewhere on the internet or available for download in some format. So you might have a live blog, you might have a podcast, you might have other things. That's what's both being judged on, but also showing up in the directory so that people who are there from Viacom and Univision and all these other companies who are going to be there will see that in advance and be like, oh, those are the people that I want to meet with. And then the final one is the one that also adds in all the master classes.
Where do you have to continue the other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Content Marketplace actually takes place right here at the Idea Center. So here in Miami. And it will be on October 3rd and 4th. That's a Thursday, Friday. And we will have, I think there's some exciting things that I've been asked to sort of put together as well with it. We're going to be doing a makers event. So there will be a sort of 24-hour kind of contest around a certain theme that people can go out. They can come back and do what they will with it. You can make a short documentary. You can make a podcast about it. You can do some other things. There's going to be some fun, sort of more interactive things that'll have prizes. There's going to be places here that I know. For instance, there's a company called VReal that's doing, they probably wouldn't like me saying this. It's the easiest thing to say. It's a lot like a Twitch, but in virtual reality. So for people who are streaming but want to start streaming in VR, they're going to be here and they're going to demo some things. So in addition to all the classes and the panels and all those pieces, there's going to be a lot of activities, technology to test out, all those kind of fun, more interactive things, because what we do is very involved. It's hands-on, so there are going to be chances for you to go get your hands on some equipment, some new technology, some other things, as well as talking with people who are here, talking about things, everything from, say, growing your social media presence, finding sponsorships, doing things like building your personal brand, and what does that mean. So whole variety of concepts that are going to be covered in all of the panels and talks. So all right, any other questions about what we talked about? Certainly, I will try to answer as many questions about Content Marketplace as possible too, but any other things on, yeah.
Hello, I'm Livio. I'm a newspaper and general editor. Matt Mercer is also, once I found out that he was the voice for JoJo's Adventures Part 3. Like, wow, that's cool. But I wanted to kind of go a little bit more, really emphasize the importance of being unique.
Mm-hmm.
You can give out more unique through personal touch, especially. So I was wondering if you had any more examples of something like that, where someone had something really, really personal to them, and then turned it into something that was really, really successful.
Absolutely. I think that, and your sense of successful may vary. I will say there's one person who I'm aware of because I do a decent amount of triathlons, and there's a person who started off and was like, hey, I just want to do a blog, and it was called it's just called Transitions, because that's a term that means something in triathlon. When you go from the water to your bike, you go through a transition zone, and you have to get your wetsuit off and put on your shoes and your helmet and all those things. Same thing when you go to the run, but it was also about how sort of triathlon has changed a lot of things in his life. And so I started tuning into it. And within about, the course over about 6 months, he went from having about 500 followers to having over 50,000 followers. And again, it's because it's an area in his life that he took as, this is a passion. I really do like triathlon. It wasn't even so much a passion, I'll be honest. He wasn't entirely sure he even liked them because they're painful. Okay, and training, and you have to get out there, and he doesn't live in Miami, so you're often, in the cold when you're going out for a run. It's raining when you're going out for your bike. But he wanted to lose some weight and get healthier. He wanted to challenge himself and work towards his first Ironman. And he did a lovely job of showing how this path of becoming a better triathlete also influenced a lot of things in his day-to-day life. And I thought that it was a really nice way of saying, okay, my personal experience of getting out there and doing this has changed me in some ways. And then other people following along. That is so common among people who are finding a really nice solid base. So I would think about that as you're looking at as an example, another example of something that you're trying to figure out how to take your personal experiences, your personal interests, and turn them into other things. Because I don't know if this room, there might be 3 people in here who maybe have done a triathlon or have thought about doing a triathlon, because most people don't. That being said, when you compound that with all the people, not just in the United States, but across the globe who do triathlons, there are many, many of them, and they're pretty rabid. Bless you. And just like everything, when you start to talk about sort of a personal interest, the people who get really dedicated to it get dedicated to it. And they can be dedicated fans. And having a person who is one of your really devout fans is on some levels way more valuable than trying to sort of pay for views and maybe randomly getting 50 people who look at it, because maybe you had one sort of hit post that sort of went viral and people saw it. But then, think about your own experiences. How many times have you followed somebody because there was one thing that came out that made you laugh? Their cat picture was better than all the other cat pictures that week. And so you're like, oh, that's funny, I'll follow this person. And then over time, they just sort of seep out of your stream because you never like anything else that they've ever done. And maybe you unfollow them or what have you. That's never going to be the experience of a person who follows someone because they share a common interest. because they feel a true connection with that person, as opposed to maybe a one-off thing that happened to coincide with the Venn diagrams of their life. The more that's overlapped, those people are going to be around, and they're going to tell other people, because you know what? Every triathlete has at least 10 other triathlete friends. They're going to be out on the bike ride together, and they're going to tell them about this thing that happened, and all those people are going to start following that person. So those people are the ones you really want to tap into, and that comes when it's about you and when you're authentic. All right, cool. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, all right. Romy has an announcement. Idea Center Director over here.
Also have a podcast we started.
Awesome.
But apart from our own podcast, we also want to teach podcasting. So the Idea Center will host an input of podcasting workshop sometime around July. And when we send out this email right after this workshop with the worksheet, we'll also give you some information about that. For those of you who are familiar with Podfest Expo, it takes place every year. It took place in Orlando. The Chief Creative Officer is going to be the one doing the last year. He's going to come from Tampa to come in. Whoever here wants to learn podcasting. So thank you. Keep the learning going. So I just wanted
Awesome.
to make an announcement about that. Thanks.
Yeah, and for those of you, that's an awesome opportunity, because I know I certainly, if I talk again about the 12 ideas in my head, some of them I feel like I have all the tools I need to get those made. And then there's other ones where I was like, I would really love to, for instance, do a podcast about triathlons or what have you. I don't know what I'm doing if I'm podcasting. So if that's where your brain is at, if you're in a place where you're feeling like, oh, I would love to do a podcast, make sure to go. It's here. The Idea Center offers so many awesome things. I've actually spoken here before, like a year ago, and every time I've come, I've loved the people who are here. They're really engaged, and I've been really impressed by the fact that there's a lot of mostly free programming that goes out to the community. So I would really take advantage of it. Get yourself educated so that you're able to execute the way that you want to. All right. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
So one thing that I've sort of been thinking a lot about is that I would love to pick a topic for a podcast that will have me creating new content so that it can continue to grow for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, at some point, you may feel like you can't continue on that same topic. But what's really great is that if you actually create an audience, they will continue to want to listen to your content if it changes slightly.
Yes.
I suppose it's a question.
No, but I think it's a good comment. And the fact that in general, people do start off with a blog or a podcast or what have you, not necessarily thinking about a full life cycle of that. And it's okay to actually plan this out, that I think I will do this for the next 2 years. Because I think I can think of enough topics to talk about for 2 years. After then, I might get repetitive. After then, I might get bored of talking about that one thing over and over again. I love my salamander, but if I continue, I don't own a salamander. But if I continue to talk about it every week, I might not like my salamander as much. Yes, I can see that. The good thing then is that you start to understand, though, that you've learned so much over those 2 years. You've developed a huge following over those 2 years. And if you handle it the right way, certainly at the end of those 2 years, those last 3 months, you start to work on a progression of migrating those people to whatever that next thing is. Because I guarantee if you're sitting in this room and you're thinking about making the Salamander podcast, you will want to make another thing when that goes away. You are a creative human who has a need to express themselves and will want to make more content. So then it's about, at that point, finding the overlap and finding the places where those go. It's okay that it won't hit every single one of your fans. That should not be your goal. Again, it should be, what's the next thing that you're passionate about that is going to have fans, keeping as many as you can in an organic way, but then moving on. Yep. Yeah.
Just a response to that would also be to sometimes just prioritize just making something instead of trying to figure out what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to have the production figured out, so if by of
Mhm.
the same faith as like, no, this is not working.
Yep.
The
The-
problem in production, it might be the topic, might be in the audience, but that's kind of like the outside.
Totally.
That I find worth mentioning.
Absolutely. And for those at home who may not have heard that, the comment was really about like just starting to make things is so valuable. And I cannot agree more, because the number of times I have hired over my career so many writers. I've been a writer on things, both video games and television and other stuff. And oftentimes I'll go and I'll speak at Comic-Con or some other places, and people will be like, well, how do I, get my first job as a writer? And I'm like, well, how much have you written over the last while? Like, just because you're not being, and oftentimes it's like, well, I have some ideas and stuff. I've read a lot of books and I've done, okay. If you're a writer, write things. If you're a filmmaker, film things. If you are, like, get out and do it. Done is better than perfect. Okay. And I will say, especially in like, at all of these things, we're going to be a student in all of these as we're getting going, right? Like, you never stop learning. You never stop being a student. You take on something new. You're going to be so much better at it 6 months later than when you started. But if you don't start 6 months later, you're going to be starting, right? So you need to get there. Know it's not going to be perfect your first few episodes. Know that you're going to get better at the execution. Know that you're going to find your voice. Know that you're going to find some of your audience and those things that actually do like feel better to you and to them. Those special things start happening. Those will not come out if you don't actually make content. So make and do, and that is the best way to get better. Hands down. Okay, it is also then you've got something to show. You've got something to put up. You've got something to start building a brand from. You've got something to potentially, like, another way that people often make content is when you're thinking about being a content entrepreneur, you might be thinking about doing it totally solo. And this is about me becoming my own boss. Sometimes people don't want to make content so that somebody will hire them. There's a different type of content entrepreneurship involved in that, right? Like building up a body of work before people are going to pay you to write their scripts for TV. Start writing your own scripts for your own web series, okay? Get better at that. Have a body of work to show if really what your ultimate goal is. Yeah, but at some point I'd love for somebody to write me a check to do this. Okay, that's, there's different goals around this, but if you're not starting, you're not going to get better. Hands down. All right. Yes.
Like, some of the questions you asked are great and wonderful. What if you're stuck? What if you can't answer those questions?
That's a really good question. I will say, to some extent, then pull in some of your buddies. Do things like, okay, especially one of the things I love about, sorry, I'm going back here just to, this thing that's here is one of the questions that's in there is it demands that you go and talk to other people about like what is special about you, because you know what, we all, and I will say this, particularly women, for a whole variety of reasons, aren't great about saying what's awesome about us. But all of us can feel like that's not appropriate, like that's the hard thing to be able to say. And the other thing is we all have different levels of self-awareness. I may feel like what I'm good at is this, but all of a sudden if I ask 3 or 4 of my friends, like, what are some adjectives you use to describe me? Or what do you think is really great about me? They might say something entirely different than I would have thought that they would have said, because moments have come up. You can do the same, not just with you, but also with your content. And I would share some of that with people you trust. And people you trust to actually give good feedback. You want to start to, as a creative, grow your circle of trusted creatives around you who don't fall into one of these 2 camps. The 2 camps that you want to avoid are the mom camp, that is like, oh, honey, it's perfect. Everything you do is great. Okay. You actually want legitimate feedback on it. And then the other is the professional critic camp, who is like, always like thinks it's their job to find something bad about what you're doing. Those 2 extremes of people who give feedback, generally keep them out of your circle. Look for the people who give good, constructive, if I were the fan here, here's my gut response. They don't have to be professional at it in any way. Like, we're all pretty good critics of pop culture, social media, all those kind of things, right? Find the people that you trust to give you good, constructive, honest feedback. And they can help you get through some of those, break over some of the barriers about, well, what is special about this? Does this idea feel unique? And a lot of times they can be really great for knowing what else is out there. We can only absorb so much, right, as people. So I know that there's somebody else making a salamander blog. I don't even know why that came out of my mouth for a while, but let's say there's a salamander blog. I think I am the one and only person making a salamander blog. Well, first Google it. Okay. Make sure that there's like, do your research, but then you can also, as you're talking to people, they're like, oh, you know what? I heard this podcast the other day and there's one guy on there who has a salamander. It's really interesting. You should listen to it. And you can you get some of those. Doesn't mean that you're the same thing. Maybe you can get that person to be a guest in your blog. Like, there's some really cool things that come out of extending your ideas out to your network, and they can absolutely help you find your special. So yeah, there was a hand over there somewhere. No? Okay. Anything else? Oh, yes.
What would be the good suggestion to find people to come up with if, for example, let's say I'm more like a technical person that like I don't feel to be like always talking to the camera and I don't really know what to talk about, but I'm good at like, music, audio, things like that. What platform to find those people that I can come up with?
I suspect there are at least 7 or 8 people in this room who's like, oh my goodness, I could use a person who's way more technical than me. What's that guy's name? So starting and coming to events like this, hugely useful. Network, talk to each other. That was in part why before this was like the mix and mingle stuff. Now that you've all here, you've got shared language. The next time you come back and you're in a room, like, make sure you're introducing yourself to people at these events, having conversations. Like I said sort of at the beginning, growing that network of creators and other creative people is such a huge part of being the best creative you can be. So take advantage of it. There's a really vibrant creative community here in Miami, and I would look at the things that you are potentially, or for the people at home, any city that you're in, I guarantee you can find, like, is there a filmmakers association? Is there a podcasters association? Is there a bloggers association? I know there is, because they're one of the sponsors of Content Marketplace. So, like, get in touch with those people, go to some of the meetings. And even if you're not the person who wants to write all the words, but you're like, but I could help you make it more interactive. And we could pull in some things that really uses technology in a cool way. There will be people who will be very excited about that. And I guarantee you, as a person who loves the creative space, but considers themselves more technical, that is much more rare in the creative space than people who want to like be on camera or people who want to write. So people are always looking for folks who really understand the technologies, understand the equipment, understand how to make that all work, love editing, love thinking about the way that a soundtrack actually combines with the content that's there. So I would really encourage you to go to some of those and just be open and introduce yourself to people, find out what other people are working on. But similar to some of the stuff we talked about earlier, then allow yourself to be particular when you're pairing up with people, find the right fit. The worst thing is having 2 partners on a project who ultimately realize they don't get along, they don't share the same vision, they don't any of those things. Make sure that you're finding that, but also to make sure that if you don't care about salamanders, don't help me with my salamander blog. Like, that's like, there will be other people who care about something that you care about, and that's the thing that you're going to want to put time into, and it's going to come off feeling authentic as well. So, all right, other questions? All right, you guys, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, and there will be another one of these in July, like we said. So reminder, if you're interested in content, you can go on the website also and learn more about the event. And you can use this code for all 3 of the ticket types to be able to attend if you want. All right, thank you.